Hello everyone, and welcome to my new video. This is Pure Imagination, and this video is going to be about the topic that I wanted to talk about for a long time after Endwalker release, and I finally got the time. Today I'm going to talk about the Bard job and analyze it over the last 4 expansions. Talk about how it's played now, talk about how it used to play, compare the things. I'll bring up 4 logs from Heavensward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers and Endwalkers, and we will check every one of them. And also in the end I'll say a couple words about Savage Raid tier that we had, because in the previous video I promised that I will do that, so yeah. Let's begin. Right now Bard is not OGCD job or dot job. It's a heavy GCD based job and nothing else. And you will see how this happened through the logs, and you will see what I mean after we check everything and analyze them. But on top of that, I wanted to talk about the current state and some points that I want to explain first. So let's open the skill window here and we'll see. Right, so we'll start with dots. Stormbite, 100 upfront potency, 25 potency per tick, 45 seconds. So total dot potency is 375 over 45 seconds, and 100 upfront makes it 475. And caustic bite, 150 upfront, 20 per tick, so it's 300 from 45 seconds of dot ticks, and 150 upfront, 450. So 475, 450. And now let's see burst shot. Burst shot, 220. That means that in 2 GCDs of damage you do 440 potency, which is almost caustic bite and almost storm bite. And over 3 GCDs it's going to be 660s. And if you have refulgent arrow on, that will be even more. So let's just do a simple calculation. Say that you're losing dots. You're losing dots because you forgot to refresh on time and you still used Iron Jaws. That's a 1 GCD. Then you reapply dots, 2nd GCD. Then you reapply the other dot, 3rd GCD. And there we go, 3 GCDs, 660 potency. And what's up front here? 100, 100, 150. That's 7.5 seconds and 350 potency. And maybe like 1 dot tick, because it's a 2nd GCD, and by 3rd GCD it will tick once. So that's 25 on top. 375 potency over 3 GCDs versus 660 potency over 3 GCDs. Or even higher if you have Refulgent Arrow, and that can go up to 780 if you are lucky. You see what I mean? You should never ever lose your dots, and when you lose your dots on some target you should consider if it's even worth reapplying. Well, unless it's a raid boss, obviously you will have to reapply, but in more casual scenario you should never reapply dots if you lose them, unless they will take for super longest time. It's better to just spam burst shots. So there we go. Bard is a GCD job. Then we have 3 songs, which are now server tick based, or like song tick based, instead of your dots. And that means that every 3 last seconds of your song, since the song will disappear and the tick happens on the last second of the song, it will not count, means 3 seconds of your song, 3 last seconds are dead. But there is also another mention: when you play the song you don't instantly get proc. You have 3 more seconds of dead time on the use of the song, which makes it like start of the song dead, end of the song dead. So it's like very interesting, if I can say that. And then we have Mage's Ballad, which was absolutely destroyed. What I mean by that, it only gives you a half of the reset, meaning it's the weakest song right now, and Arnis Peon, due to the fact that the Bard is a GCD job now, is much stronger. And now we go back in time and start analyzing stuff. I will bring 4 logs and we will see. Let's begin with Heavensward. During Heavensward, Bard used to work differently. It was a caster job. Everybody called it a bow mage, if you'd like me to name it that. How it worked is that the Wanderer's Minuet, instead of being a song, it would be a toggle which would give you 30% more damage, but add cast times and cancel your auto attack while you use it. So all of your GCD damage was casts. There were 2 exceptions, and that was straight shot proc, which made the next straight shot instant instead of a cast, and cross-class skill from Lancer/Dragoon, which was called Fiends. It was low potency, cost a lot of TP, but when you needed your weave slots or when you needed to move, it would give you a weave slot or mobility on demand. So that was pretty good. So how this whole thing is going to work is that I'm going to break down all the types of damage and compile it together into GCD damage, OGCD damage, dot damage, and auto attack damage, as you can see on the left from the log. And we will start with Alexander Prime. It's 8 Volves farm, Heavensward, log from 2017. Let's go. As we can see that our heavy shot and bloodletter were basically equal damage. GCD damage, OGCD damage. Imperial Arrow was interesting because it was off GCD, but it was cast weapon skill. I included calculations for when you calculate Imperial Arrow as GCD damage and as OGCD damage. So there we go. And let's look at it. Our total GCD damage, depending, would be 32% or 45%, depending on how Imperial Arrow is counted, right? And then our OGCD damage would be 31% to 44%. Dot damage 22.3 and auto attack damage less than 1%. Why is there still auto attack damage even though the Wanderer's Minuet cancels auto attack? Is because there were times where you would have to turn off Wanderer's Minuet to reapply the dots after the boss invulnerability phase, like transition, or when you needed to move heavily for like 2 or 3 GCDs and you couldn't afford to pay a high TP cost from Feint. So yeah, there we go. You could see that between OGCD and GCD damage, it was more or less equal depending on how you look at it, and your dot damage also made almost quarter of your total damage. So that's about Heavensward. Rip Blunt Arrow, Rip Misery Sand, Rip Repelling Shot Damage, Rip Flaming Arrow. Also, the misc category is all of the GCDs or OGCDs that I just don't want to mention because there are too many. Just don't want to count all of them. So let's just pile them together into one misc category. So there we go. Heavensward. Now let's check Stormblood. Now the Stormblood was a special time for Bard. It's when the Bard got reworked and it was just apex of good gameplay. Mobility, good damage, good utility, complex rotation, optimization, super fun. Everybody will remember Stormblood as one of the best times for Bard. And here I have a log of Sigmascape. 2018, 1 year later, got Kefka. Let's look at it. And the first thing we see is that our heavy shot got a little bit heavier, but our auto attack damage spiked up to 15%. And while I don't mind the GCD damage going a little bit up in terms of heavy shot, the auto attack is very important damage. And we will see from comparisons. Our total GCD damage goes to 33%. So we have heavy shot, refulgent arrow, and all the different stuff. That's 33.66% of damage. And let's look at OGCD damage. We've got a bunch of OGCDs that still existed and some didn't exist, but overall it was the same. And as we can see, it's like just on the screen. 33.12% of total damage. We lost in Bloodletter damage compared to Heavensward, but we also gained Pitch Perfect, because Pitch Perfect didn't exist, and that combined, Bloodletter and Pitch Perfect, made up more total damage percent than Bloodletter itself during Heavensward. And we can see the misc is like 5%, and OGCD damage is almost equal to GCD damage. And while we look at dot damage, it went down a bit, but overall we gained from 0.74 to up to 15.16% damage in auto attacks, which was important. And during Stormblood just brought a buff meta, and Bard was really important compared to not having it, obviously, but it required to be in the meta comp to be super effective, and when it was in meta comp, it was extremely effective. There were a lot of fun aspects to it, snapshotting your dots under crits and buffs, just tracking your own resources, providing utility, doing big damage, looking at all of your OGCDs, because as you can see, 33% of the time you'd be looking at OGCDs, and the same as GCDs, and maintaining your dots. So for Bard it was amazing time, and as you can see from the two graphs here, the damage just got split into a little bit more of OGCDs and just got bumped with auto attack damage. So yeah, that's it for Stormblood. Now let's look at Shadowbringers. And for Shadowbringers I brought Eden's Promise, which is the last fight of the Shadowbringers expansion, Oracle of Darkness. This was God Kefka, this is Oracle of Darkness. And why I mentioned that is because during Stormblood, Bard used to have crit scaling, which would make you much stronger by the end of expansion than at the start of expansion. And Shadowbringers brought a whole lot of changes to Bard as a job. Removal of mentioned crit scaling, normalizing procs, removal of a bunch of OGCDs and throwing it into GCD damage, and streamlining the gameplay away, and also taking away all the good things we used to have for damage utility and just providing utility, and gave it to other physical ranged, and basically got overshadowed by Dancer. So let's look at Oracle of Darkness, and we can see an extreme leaning towards GCD damage here. And let's look at it. I have the numbers on the left. So for Shadowbringers, our total GCD damage went from 33% up to 50%. So half of your damage is straight up coming from the GCD. And OGCD damage, while it went down a little bit from 33% to 25%, it's still like, it was still there. OGCD damage still existed, because your procs, while didn't scale with crits, your dots still procced on 40% rate, which was assumed to be more or less how the dots would proc during Stormblood. So we have 25% in OGCD, 50% in GCD, but then we see a significant drop in dot damage and auto attack damage. Auto attack went from 15 to 11.5, and dot damage went from 18 down to 12.5% damage. So also I have to mention is that in OGCD department, the biggest hit that was taken was by Imperial Arrow. It was because Imperial Arrow during Stormblood was still considered a weapon skill. Even though it was a GCD, you could still use Barrage with Imperial Arrow during Stormblood, which would inflate damage percent a little bit with bad luck, where you, during your reopener or opener or burst phase, whatever you like to call it, you didn't get Refulgent Arrow proc, you would use your Barrage with Imperial Arrow instead. So let's say that here in my log during Stormblood, I got 10% damage in Imperial Arrow. It may be the lower, it may be upper, and Refulgent Arrow would be different. So it would like fluctuate between from 33 to 35% GCD damage and from 33 to 30 OGCD damage. Let's say it like that. And during Shadowbringers, Imperial Arrow became ability, which lowered its scaling because in-game abilities scale differently from weapon skills. And we can see that. A lot of power went into GCDs. While Bard gameplay went down the drain during Shadowbringers compared to Stormblood, the core of Feast of Famine proc-based job was still there, even though it wasn't as super good, but it was still there. It was still fine to play it. But obviously, as you can see, it started to go towards the more boring parts, if I can say it like that. The more spammy parts. So yeah, there we have it for Shadowbringers. And now we arrive at Endwalker, which is current expansion. Here I have Hesperos Savage Log, a week 1 kill, and let's look at it and compare. As we can see, heavy movement towards GCD damage, and I already calculated everything, so let's look at it. GCD damage 55%, with heavy shot being 25, Refulgent Arrow being 19 to probably like with higher proc rate it would be heavy shot 24%, Refulgent Arrow will be like 21-ish%, but 55% of total damage is your GCD damage. And OGCD damage, it didn't take that big of a hit. Bloodletter became weaker, but Pitch Perfect is the same. Imperial Arrow gained a bit, so it's more or less there, but GCD just went up by 5%. And those 5% were lost in dot damage. Our current dots are 4%, 4.6%, and 3.6%. That's very weak, which means that currently, if you don't apply your dots ever during the entire fight, you will only be losing 8% of the damage, maybe 8 to 10, 8 to 9%, which means that you're not punished. And also, the change from song procs, from being tied to dots, to just tied to songs, is just weird. You don't need dots anymore to have procs, so why even bother? Like, if you're doing any kind of content where you don't have DPS checks and you just want to be done, you don't even need dots. You literally just spam your GCDs and you will be completely fine. As you can see, it's only 8% damage. So as long as you keep your GCDs rolling and keep using all of your OGCDs, it will be fine. And this is not good at all. Like, why does this exist? I don't understand it. It's sad, it's bad design. Look at other expansions. Heavensward, heavy OGCD damage. Stormblood, heavy OGCD damage. And then in Shadowbringers we start to go down this way extremely hard. And now we arrived here, where in Endwalker you are straight up a one button spam job. And sometimes you use other buttons when they highlight. It is sad. It's really sad. Bard shouldn't be this. This is the reason that I'm making this video. This is not good. You can see 45% or 32%, 33%, and then suddenly boom, 50%, 55%. What is this? A stale, uninteresting, unfun job. We need changes. Now. Now for the final remark of this video is that I'm going to say a couple of words about Savage. The raid tier was pretty fun, even though it wasn't easier part of the spectrum. I still enjoyed it. I streamed everything on YouTube. You can find all the stream VODs in a different playlist on my channel, obviously, and I uploaded every single kill video differently that you could also find. And before I end this video, I just want to say that it was a decent raid here, and I hope that it's going to be better later. But regarding the topic, I hope that you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making this, because I really wanted to research all of this and show everyone how the job changed over the span of all these years, and that it used to be much better than what it is now from gameplay standpoint. So thank you for watching. It was enjoyable for me to show you this, and thank you. Have a good one. If you think that you have something to say, leave a comment down below, and if you like the video, leave a like. If you dislike video, leave a dislike. I look at those every day. Thank you once again, and have a good one. This was Poor Imagination. Bye bye.